Okay, we're recording and we are live. Welcome everyone. How's it going? Give me a wave or a thumbs up just so you can let me know that you can hear me. Yeah? Okay, awesome. Great to see you folks. Okay, welcome everyone. Great to see you folks. In consideration of Miss Clayton's time, we're gonna get right into it. I have the incredible privilege to introduce Miss Xernona Clayton to you all. I'm still in awe that she's on the same Zoom call with us. It's pretty special. And Miss Clayton, we're so grateful. Just a reminder, if you could mute yourselves, just so we don't have any feedback, that would be great. Thank you. So for a fundraiser, Maya, our co-founder and friend, our mentor, Dr. Maya Sotoro, she actually paid for this opportunity to chat with Miss Clayton, and Maya graciously decided to donate this opportunity to our Seeds of Peace youth. So Maya, thank you so much for your generosity. This is a really, really special gift. Maya's gonna say a few words, but before I hand the floor to her, I just wanted to remind you folks of Miss Clayton's accomplishments and who she is. So I'm gonna read you her bio. Miss Xernona Clayton is an American civil rights leader and broadcasting executive. During the civil rights movement, she worked closely with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King. She later became the first African American from the Southern US to host a daily primetime talk show and served as a corporate vice president for urban affairs at Turner Broadcasting. She founded the Trumpet Awards, an internationally televised event highlighting African American accomplishments and contributions. Her persistent fight against the dragons of prejudice and bigotry was never more apparent than in 1968, when the Grand Dragon of the KKK denounced the Klan and credited Miss Clayton's influence with his change. Miss Clayton's dedication to the community is reflected in the many hours she spends promoting human relations through biracial groups devoted to improving racial understanding. Thank you so much, Miss Clayton, for spending this time with us. Our students have some really great questions planned for you, and what an honor it is to hear from you. So Maya, I want to hand the floor to you. Do you want to say a few words before we hand it off to Miss Clayton?
Sure. I mean, I thank you for that introduction, and you mentioned a number of important things that Ms. Clayton has done. And although, you read in your history books about the National Urban League and Southern Christian Leadership Conference work, I think it's remarkable that we have the opportunity to hear from someone who lived that experience and devoted time and energy. But Ms. Clayton and I had a beautiful long conversation yesterday, during which time her words were a soothing balm to my soul. She's lived through so much, and she's seen through the prism of multiple generations. And so she has wisdom in her that is a blend of pragmatism and idealism. She's lost many people she's loved, but she lives and speaks with a recognition of all that she still has, all that she has gained, with a layered passion and tenderness that lets you know that the lessons and love of each of those relationships and experiences remain with her in profound and instructive ways. She also has so much love for and faith in young people. So I know she's happy to speak with you and to have this intergenerational duet. So I don't want to take up any more time, but I want to thank you, Ms. Clayton, for being here, and thank you for all who are in attendance for taking this time on a Saturday morning. Aloha.
Thank you. Is it my turn now, Scott?
Yep,
thank
go ahead.
you for the kind words. And I thought about something. How would I start this conversation? Well, first, let me say I'm so glad to see my good friend Jennifer Gates joining us. I just love her, and glad to know that she went out of her way, and she's so busy, but made time to put me and Maya together. And I'm grateful to you, Jennifer, for so many things, but this one especially. Now, sometimes I plan what I'm going to say, and other times I said, I'm just going to talk. And so I've decided that that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to talk. I've learned a little of the background of you nice people and your strong commitment to making this a better world, doing what you can where you are and when you can. It's very exciting to me to hear those kinds of stories. But I remember asking John Lewis, the great civil rights leader who just passed away. You know the story. He was beaten severely at the bridge in Alabama. And the story, you know that story. But you probably have seen the pictures too where they beat him, knocked him down, beat him. Well, I was a very personal friend. And later on, it was much later, I asked John, because I had a curious, and I don't know why this was such a curiosity for me, but I've never been knocked down and so brutally. It wasn't just a chap running over you, but just knocking you down and stomping and all that. And I said, John, what did you do when they knocked you down like that? I thought, so brutal. He said, I just wanted to get up. I've thought of that since his death. I hadn't done this before, but those words are pretty piercing. I just got up. I think that if each of us looked around our environment, you see the hunger and the poverty and the desires of people who are ill. Suppose you said to yourself, I just want to get up and help them. The desire to help is there. But I heard a person say one time, well, it's an age-old setting, that if you want to, you can. If you don't, you won't. Now, this becomes an opportunity, and it's applicable to so many situations. It's sort of like, your everyday life. If you feel like getting up and going and get a pizza, you're going to get up and go get it. If there's something else you have a desire for and you really want it, you'll make it happen. But if we would take the same philosophy and apply it to the needs of others, it'll make us have a bigger and better world. I feel like I've had a good life because I've been surrounded by people who had that spirit, the spirit of sharing with others. Be grateful for what you have and be solid in your will to share it with others. Dr. King was such an example for me and such an opportunity to meet a man who I guess today we would still consider him one of the most famous persons who ever lived. He gave so much, and living and working and being around him all the time convinced me that he was serious about everything he was trying to do. He wasn't playing. He wasn't trying to impress anybody. He did what he did because he believed in it. I remember I had to spend a lot of time with him. I ended up being his confidant in that, famous people have needs as well. Someone just to talk to. And I had been known as a person who didn't do a lot of talking. Gossiping is what it amounts to. But I kept most information I had to myself. And people learned to respect that, and I didn't know they were doing that, watching my behavior on issues. But he even said to me, Dr. King did, everybody trusts you. And to me, that was the greatest compliment anybody could ever give me, is he could trust me. Because if you have a secret, some reason why you want to keep a factual part of your life to yourself, but you're anxious to share it, you don't want to put it in the newspaper. You just want to release it and tell somebody. And you don't expect your friend to broadcasted. Well, I never examined that as a trait that I wanted to employ. It's just that I was like that. So he learned to trust me. And as famous as he was, like normal people. I mean, you have some things you don't want to share with the world, but they're bothering you. So as a result, I got a chance to hear and see for myself a lot of things that were either troubling him or he had some issues with. But then also, while those kinds of revelations were taking place, I got a chance to really know the man's inner feelings. And so now that he's gone, I can truthfully describe the real Martin Luther King Jr. And so when I tell you that he was troubled by the children in Vietnam, he told me he was at home one day getting ready to leave and turn the television off. And when he got to the television, there were some children being burned. And he said, that's it for me. I've got to speak out on the issue of treating children like this. Of course, that's bad for anybody, but children, burning children. But guess what happened? He started now on his speeches going around the nation talking about issues, and he severely criticized the way the children were being burned. Now, he had become friends with President Johnson, and that was a good thing because he had access to the White House. But he knew that President Johnson would be put in an awkward position had he raised the issue with President Johnson. So he didn't. He just decided when he was making a speech in Washington that he talked about the fact that he could not support the war in Vietnam. Well, at that very moment, he was put on a shelf and people didn't even want to talk to him anymore. All the doors were shut in his face. Our money dried up. We didn't have money for salaries. Contributions just went away because they thought that Dr. King was acting like a traitor by talking about an issue that the government and our country was involved in. He said he didn't care that when you start burning children, you cannot be quiet. When you have a commitment to something, you got to give it all. You can't go part of the way and then stop. But life has many things for us to deal with in terms of personal relationships, race relations, which is, to me, a dastardly act for us to separate people or choose people based on color. Dr. King said, and I'm really a believer of this, that underneath the skin, we're all the same. And just as an example, he said, take your wrist. If a white person cuts his wrist and it bleeds, it's going to be red blood. You take yours, do the same thing. You cut your wrist, it bleeds, same color, red. So he said, underneath the skin, we're all the same. Now, what we've done is take external looks. We judge people superficially. If you're white, he's not right. You can't do that. To me, it's an awful way to judge anybody by the way he looks. And not just color, but the way people are, the way they look in any form. To make a judgment on some external features is such a shallow way to do an analysis or choose relationships. Now, that was a simple lesson that underneath the skin, we're all the same. And once you do it, that's right, we are. It makes it so plain. And so I feel like I've been blessed along the way to live in the shadows and in the environment of people who are serious about loving each other as people. That when we recognize accept accept, not recognize, accept the reality that we're all the same, then we can make better judgments. You can choose a person or choose not to like a person based on his behavior or his choices of how he lives his life. But to make a decision based on something as superficial as color is so ridiculous. But I think we miss good people also by choosing with such a shallow unit of measure. A man was telling me how he and his brothers always look forward to Saturday morning because you can sleep in, you didn't have to go to school, you didn't have to get up. But his father would come in every Saturday morning and pull the cover off the boys and say, "Get up." He said, "Get up, this is Saturday." He said, "Yes, I know, but get up." I said, "But Dad, why do we have to get up? It's Saturday. This is our day off. We have nothing to do." And he said, "Just get up anyway and go outside, put your clothes on, go outside, because there's always something to do." I've never forgotten that story because there is so much truism and there's always something to do. You can feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and be kind to your neighbor, regardless to who the neighbor is. Be kind to each other. Be willing to do for others as you would really want people to do for you. Simple as that. Do unto others. But I had a newsman one time, he was interviewing me and he said, "Miss Clayton, everybody knows you always have such a bright temperament about you. You're always smiling and always seem like you're happy. But I want to know the secret to your bad days. What are your bad days like?" I said, "Well, I don't have any." He said, "Oh, come on. Everybody has bad days." I said, "But I thought you were asking me about mine." "I don't have any." He said, "Explain it." I said, "It's simple to explain." I said, "When I wake up in the morning and realize I am she who is up, that is a good day. Because I start off with some pluses. I know who I am." A lady was telling me that she was just feeling so pained all the time because her mother was living with her. She brought her mother in to live with her and she had to feed her and take care of her because she'd become ill, the mother. And she said, she was just sharing with me, she was tired most of the time. But she said, "I'm not as much dealing with fatigue as I am mentally drained, that I'm taking care of my mother, I'm feeding her, but she doesn't even know that I'm her daughter. She doesn't even know me. And it's so painful." And the mother had gone into a state of, what do you call it, when they don't remember, they just don't remember. And I was saying, what a blessing I have, because I kind of know who I am. The good Lord gives me sanity 3 days a week, and I fake the rest of the week. So I get by through the week. But the inside of me says to me that there's something you can do today. And I've kind of made that as my jump up, getting ready to go kind of drive, like there's something I can do today to help somebody. It's such a good feeling. I tell people it's really selfish of me to want to do for others because I feel so good when I do it, that I just keep on doing good as best I can. But there's something to do all the time. And there's a saying, if you can, you will. If you want to, you won't. If you don't want to, I'm sorry, you won't. So we're always in control of our emotions, our time, our energies, in our schedules for the day. Do you want to help somebody? Do you want to treat your neighbor as you treat yourself? That's simple. Do you want to be balanced in your judgment of people? Can you have a big enough heart to take in all the love that you can get because you're pouring it out? It feels good to get love in return also. You don't do it for that, but when you get it back, it feels good. So I tell people all the time, look around, there's always something to do. But then you're the beneficiary of that because it feels good after you've done something that's beneficial to somebody else. The world is a big place. And as I come down here every day, I pass people here who are sleeping. Now, I'm not crazy, so I don't go and wake them up and ask if they're okay. But I'm certainly cognizant every day the fact there are people sleeping in the streets. There are people, and sometimes the garbage can, I see them turning the garbage can over and emptying the trash and going through it to see if there's something in it to eat. And I've got something to eat. I eat by my choice. If I want something to eat, I can get it. And most of us are blessed to have that kind of life that you can get some food and some shelter and some love. But everybody is not that privileged. So if we learn to share our privileges, our love, our talents with others, we could make this a better world. I built a school in Africa. When I went over to visit, they took me to a place called was a house of no return. It was a castle. It's a castle over there where they took years ago men that they'd stored in the prisons, and they were to put them on slave ships, put them on the boats, threw the children in the water because they had no value, and left the women in the cells. They brought those men to the shores of America, not to do what other people have the privilege of doing. People come here to visit and to see and to get a better life. African American men in Africa and others were brought here on slave ships for servitude. But in spite of the fact that was their introduction to America, and still is in existence today, we have to feel like at some point we've got to free everybody. Now, we as African Americans have some freedoms, but we're without justice, equality. And so the subject of race has done great harm to our society. It has been for centuries, and although we've passed some legislation, and I was a part of the movement of the civil rights movement where we helped to create some freedoms. Voting is one. I was so glad this year to see people standing in line waiting to vote because there was, I guess, my job was to help get them out of bed when I was working with Martin Luther King, get them out of bed to feel the need to go and vote. And they would come up with excuses. And I said, do you realize that people who look like you have been beaten on the doorsteps of the courthouse, trying to create an opportunity for you to get out of bed and go vote? But I guess there's no reason for you to get up because there's no place for you to go in the early days because you couldn't vote. And now the opportunity is there. You've got to vote. So I was pleased as punch this year to see people saying, I'm going to stand in this line, I don't care how long it takes. So finally, I'm seeing that people are waking up. And I go back then to the African setting, where in that prison there was the door of no return. Those Black men were not coming back ever there. They were brought to America to serve as servants because they were Black and considered them useless. And so much harm has been done to our America because of it, in spite of the fact that some of this was changed, and I helped make some of this change. I created a project called the Trumpet Awards, where we set out to show the talents, the contributions of African Americans. Because Dr. King said he didn't believe all white people hated us as Black people because they love to hate. Some of them probably hate us because they just did not know us. So he said, you've got to spend as much time as you can sharing what is a secret, obviously, to this great, vast society that we've been contributing in spite of the fact we've been in servitude. How would we get along without the traffic light? We couldn't. A Black man created that. Suppose you were in an airport and you felt like you were having a heart attack. Fret not. There's a defibrillator somewhere in that airport because a Black man created it. And suppose if one of our great doctors had not lived, we'd been a Melba Hess, because you go to the hotel, to the hospital. And years ago, you couldn't preserve blood. But this doctor figured out a way to preserve blood. And he went to Miami for medical convention, driving back to his home in Chicago, experienced a very serious automobile accident. So severe that he needed blood to save his life. And when the hospital found out he was Black, they would not give him any blood, and he died. There's stories we have in our annals of history that let us know that in spite of the fact that we are having trouble trying to get the racial understanding way we want it to be, if you're laboring in ignorance, you won't know that we've been here all the time. And at some point we got free, but we didn't get justice and equality, and we're still searching for it. This is a great country. We got great people in it. So the key to all of this is for all of us to get a new verve of vivacity to say, I'm gonna treat my neighbor as I would treat myself. I'm gonna love rather than hate. I'm gonna feed the hungry and clothe the naked, whether I've got time to do it or not. And if all of us made a commitment to embrace each other, what a great world this would be. I do it every opportunity I can. I urge you to do the same thing because it makes you feel good. I'm going to stop now, Scott, and maybe they've got some.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for those awesome stories, Ms. Clayton. I just realized that as much as I've read and studied Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I've never heard a live firsthand account of him like I just heard from you. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm assuming many of us probably say the same. Yeah, we'd like to open it up for questions. And Ms. Clayton, please just let us know when you need to go. I think we only budgeted half an hour, so we're already at half an hour. But yeah, please just let us know when you need to run. Christian, I think we're going to start with you. Yeah, Christian, did you want to ask a question to Ms. Clayton?
Hi, yes, my name is Christian. Nice to meet you. So my question is, how does the fight for racial justice during the civil rights era compare or contrast with the fight for racial justice today?
What, ma'am?
Oh, she was saying the fight. Tell her to repeat the question.
Can you?
I can repeat that. I can go slower. Sorry. How does the fight for racial justice during the civil rights era compare or contrast with the fight for racial justice today?
Well, I guess we have to say we have to continue the fight because it's not over yet. But Dr. King was a man who believed exclusively in nonviolence. He just could not buy the fact that we had to kill everybody to get our fair spot in America. So I keep remembering him and his theory of nonviolence, and he made it work. So I think that we've got to all pull together and do what some people have been able to do, just find a gracious way. Maybe that's kind of a difficult term for me to use for this, but find a way that we can peacefully approach the issue of mistreatment and maltreatment of each other and figure out a way to come together, because we have really more things in common than we have difference. That's the first thing we have to understand, that there are really more common things. That's a thread that's woven throughout all of us that we really are aware of. So I think that because of his nonviolence, I'm kind of opposed to those who seek violence as a way to get attention and dramatize a problem. We dramatized a problem during the Martin Luther King Day. Everybody knew we had problems that we were trying to solve, but we did it peacefully and had some victories along the way. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clayton. Sophia, do you want to ask your question?
Yes. As a young change maker during the civil rights era, what advice do you have for us as young change makers of today?
Oh, I think that you could have really the same verve and vitality toward the issues as everybody has who had good intentions. That, you know what, when you really treat others the way you wish to be treated, make that a real treatment and a real reality, it'll work very well with you. You see, when people don't feel the pain of rejection, you're not going to know what it is to be like, to just be rejected. No, you can't come in here. No, you can't enter. I had that happen when I was in college. There were about 4 or 5 of us, boys and girls, who were on our way back to the dormitory from our night out of fun and decided we wanted a hamburger. And we saw a hamburger stand and we went in and we all had money. And the guy was there by himself. I guess he was the owner, I don't know. But he had a long, like a butcher knife, a long knife. And he held it up to us and he said, "You niggers know you don't belong here. So get out of here or else I'm gonna cut all your heads off." And he acted like he meant it. Of course, we were scared to death. And of course, we left. Of course, I won't eat that hamburger even today. But he said, "You don't belong here." Now, when you say that in the presence of Black people, we've heard that so many times, "You don't belong here." And they make it a truism. They deny us entry to certain places. You don't belong there. And so I think when we run into issues that we know we can help do something about, you know, changing a person's attitude. Like the woman, as I told you, I produced the Trumpet Awards, and we had a white woman who was a mother. She lived in mid-America. She told me where, I just don't want to reveal it. But she said, "I was taught by my loving mother and my loving father that all Black people were lazy." She said all Black men would rather stand in line to get a government check than to get a job. All Black women would rather have a baby than have a job. Now, she said they taught her that. So she grew up hating all Black people, hating them. And she said it was through my program, when she's learning now through our presentations, that we were presenting the lives of people who made such valuable contributions in spite of being in servitude in a lot of cases. Those were not truths that her sweet mother and father were giving her. But see, prejudice doesn't have to belong to anybody exclusively. Anybody can be prejudiced because they choose to be that way. And so she started reading and researching and pulling back the tapes of our Trumpet Awards to see all these Black people who have made valuable contributions. And she said, I've learned a lot. She said, I have two little girls. One is 3 and one is 5. I don't want them to grow up in the same ignorance I've grown up in, so send me those tapes. I don't care what they cost. Sometimes changing attitudes would be a big help to people, because if they grow up thinking we all smell, we're all lazy, then it'll continue in the next generation, So you got to help to change attitudes of people, that we're not all that you've heard we are. And so spreading the message of being fair to folk, open the door and let them in. Feed your neighbor. Everybody gets hungry. Just feed them. You don't even have to ask what you like. If they're hungry, they'll eat anything, really. But be kind to your neighbor. Start there. We had a criminal act here the other day, and here in Atlanta. It was a big story in the newspaper. And so the police, when they come to get information about, what happened, they always, I understand, go to the neighbors and say, what were these people like? And, somebody was killed. He said he'd lived there 7 years and he didn't even know his neighbor. Can you imagine living next door to somebody never knowing? I want to know who's next to me. I would want to, and it has nothing to do with the fact whether he's Black or white, just who is it? Who lives next door? But I think there's simple things that we can do to help spread the message. When you find someone with an ugly thought, try to diffuse it. Try to change the minds of anybody you run into who has a prejudicial feeling about people of another color. And it doesn't matter. I don't mean just Black and white. We now have, we see the world now as it really is, all colors. So we just can't take color. Behavior will be a good unit of measurement. How do people act? How do they treat other people? So help to change negative attitudes wherever they exist would be one thing I would say. There are a lot of things you could do, but I'd start there.
Thank you so much, Ms. Clayton. And great question, Sophia. Great question, Christian. We are 13 minutes over the 30 minutes we budgeted. So I think we should wrap up there, unless, Ms. Clayton, is there any last words you'd like to offer before we say goodbye?
Well, I'll just make this a statement. I wouldn't take your extra time, but it's a pleasure to meet all of you. I thank Jennifer, my friend, for introducing me to Mario, and I think this is the beginning of a long relationship, because I think of things that we could do together to help. And that's what we all need to do, is find some way to help change the direction our country has been going in. Hatred has no real place. Discrimination has no real comfort. Hungry people are not joy, see? So if we could just find ways to work together to help diffuse some of the problems we find that are in existence every day, make life better for somebody else is such a good feeling. It really is. That we can help change attitudes, and that's a good platform on which to stand, help change a negative attitude. You saw me do it with Calvin Quaid, the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan. And that story has so many tentacles to it, I cannot tell it to you. but I feel good every time somebody mentions it to me. I feel good that I had a role to play in a man who was just filled with hatred for Black people. That was his whole operation. And for him to say that he credited me with changing his negative attitude is something will carry me long beyond 90. Thank you.
Thanks again, Ms. Clayton. I am so inspired. As you were speaking, I just realized I need to be a better neighbor. I'm going to go bring some fruit over to my next door neighbor right after I finish this call. And I'm going to do even better things, moving forward in my life. So thank you so much, Ms. Clayton. What a rare privilege to have a conversation with such an icon like yourself. Like I said, you inspire us with your accomplishments from the past, as well as your visions for the future. And this is just a really special morning. I know I'll never forget. And give a thumbs up if you feel the same way, students. Yeah, awesome. So thank you again, Ms. Clayton. What a pleasure it was to meet you. This was recorded, so we will put this up on YouTube at some point. So thank you so much. Maya, any final words?
No, just thank you. So grateful. And yes, I agree. This was memorable and beautiful way, not just to start the day, but to start renewing our vision for better, stronger, more beautiful and loving tomorrow. So thanks for being an inspiration and love you all. Big aloha.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Everyone. Aloha.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jennifer. We're glad to see you again.
Love you,
Yeah,
Jen.
great to finally meet you in person, Jen.
Thank you all so much. This is amazing.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, no problem, Stephanie.
That's great.
Great to
see
hear from
you.
you. Yeah, good to see you too. We'll be in touch
Bye.
about something in the works. We'll work on something together soon.
Awesome. Cool.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Bye.
Bye.